All right, let's get started, guys. Okay. So for this course, I think I'm going to record all of the screens, not you guys, okay, not myself. I'm going to record all the screens because all the coding, live coding, all the details. And also I want to say before we get everything started, okay, this semester, please expect a lot of bumpy demos, okay? I already cannot launch my Android Studio before the class. I actually haven't figured out how to fix it, so we'll see. That's something you guys will also expect. I don't think there's anything wrong because Flutter is still a very new framework. They're improving and adapting really quickly. But the really downside is in the first 1 or 2 months, okay, you will have a lot of different issues and problems, okay? Problem related with SDK setup, running your application, problem with all the different Dart issues, and then when you try to run it on the actual device or emulator, or things maybe working on Android, once you switch to iOS, it start working, okay? Or suddenly you update one package, you bump up the version, and then break a lot of things. Actually very, very typical, okay? From that point of view, native development such as Android or iOS will be much more easier. It's a very stable, especially Android. It's really stable, and all the packages, everything pretty easy to use. But Flutter, I guess it's just probably because we're not the expert yet. And at the same time, they're doing a lot of updates. So any kind of errors, issues, just don't be panic. Okay, always Google, discuss. Most of the time you can find and similar issues from Stack Overflow or some other website that just keep trying. You never know which one works. Okay, at least that's my experience. So I'm going to record all the screens and then put that into YouTube. And then just in case you want to go back to check out something, I think that's probably useful. And also, it's highly recommended you actually bring the laptop and we can actually do a lot of things together. Okay, so today, the most important goal is actually to set up environments and then make sure we can create a sample application, make sure we can run it. I'll briefly discuss the ideas behind this whole Flutter. How does that make it work to be Android and iOS compatible? Okay, so let's get started. How many of you already tried to set up your Flutter environment? Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so if you haven't done that, everything should be here. Everything, just Google Flutter, and then you will be able to find this official website from Google. I actually forgot to mention a really big, important feature, advantage about Flutter compared with React Native. Okay, let me actually, it's maybe this website here. Okay, so this one here, I forgot to mention that they are supporting not just mobile application. Okay, you can also use Flutter to do web application and also desktop application. Okay, it sounds really cool. Okay, I definitely believe it's possible, but as far as I know, the web and desktop are not that mature yet. Okay, it's not definitely not like you click on a button, you choose where to run it, it works. Okay, I think you probably need some extra setup. I also know some of the library, for example, it works for mobile, but in web you need to change a different library, which makes totally sense because a lot of the library dependencies is designed for the mobile platform. For web, you probably need totally different things. Okay, but as you can see from here, you can see the trend of the software development, and the trend is all this company, they're trying to make this development easier and easier so that you don't have to learn that many new things, because eventually we wanted to focus on making application, solving problem, but whether it's web and mobile, what kind of language you use, that's actually less important. Okay, that's the trend. That's why I think this thing is really cool. Okay, we can probably spend a little bit of time. I never tried that yet. We can spend some time to see exactly how the web and desktop works. If that can work, then I think Flutter is huge. Okay, that's why, because of all of this, I think Google is really putting a lot of efforts on this, which is very smart. All right, so to get things started, the most of the things you need to actually get installed, just to follow this tutorial here, and then they have very good tutorial to lead you to get your thing installed, and then just choose the operating system. I think just follow the step here. The most important thing, you need to download this SDK here. Okay, so this is actually a pretty large library. Okay, I have one, but I think there's some kind of issue which we need to fix. Okay, so I'm gonna this one takes 20 minutes. I'll see what we have here in my desktop. Okay, I should have one. Just want to show you some kind of ideas. Flutter. Let's see. I should have some of the downloads, right? I think it's probably one of these. Okay, now this one's. All right, so let me, I'm trying to find out the actual zip file. Basically, I probably already deleted it. So it's I have one version here in my workspace. So this thing, once you download it, okay, it's basically looks like this. Okay, there is a whole SDK folder, very similar to Android. If you download Android SDK, it's the same thing. Basically, the SDK provide you all this core functionality about Flutter development, including a language support using Dart. And more importantly, it's about how do we turn those Dart programs and then other component file together and generate the executable mobile components for Android and iOS. Okay, this big file here takes 12 hours to download. Once you extract it, that's what it looks like. Okay, so you need to put this in here in one of the folders, and then after that, if you see the tutorial here, you got to basically export a path, make sure the command is executable. This one here is very important. A lot of time, for example, Android, you don't have to worry about some of this command. But for this one here, if you download the Flutter, you see there's a bin folder, which normally contains all this executable command, right? So you will need to use this Flutter command very often. So let me actually go to there. So this is the actual folder. Okay, the Flutter folder, once you extract your zip file, that's what it looks like. And if you go to the bin folder, there is this Flutter executable command, right? So if you run Flutter here, and then you can see that's a command line window that allows you to create a project, clean up your project, build your project, and also allow you to run different things. And then you can also use this one, for example, to check the version. So if you do Flutter version, all right, so this one actually lists all the available version. Not sure about if we do dash version, does that give you the current version? Yeah, it's 2.7 Dart and 1.12.13. That's actually looks like pretty new. So compare with that one. Yeah, it's actually exactly the same one as I showed in here. So I don't have to download this more. Let me just cancel it. All right, so that's the file. So as you can see, this is a Flutter command, okay? Once you have some issues, when you Google, do it. One of the very typical command you will see is something called a Flutter Doctor. Okay, so let me just run that for you. So if you do Flutter Doctor, all right. So this one is kind of a self-check program to see your system setup related with Flutter, if that all works. Okay, so you will see the result. So basically, check your SDK, check your Android support, iOS support, some other things. Okay, all right. So you can see here the result. So the first check Flutter. That's the version. This is very important. If you don't even have a Flutter SDK, you won't be able to do it. And then there's the Android toolchain here. And then some of the Android lessons are not accepted. Okay, this is really important. If you want to run your app in Android, most of the time, if you have Windows, this is the only way you can run, okay, in Android emulator, Android phone. So, when you working with Android, there are a lot of Android-related SDKs, a lot of components you need to install. If you ever use Android Studio, you know that you have to click on the accept agreement before you click on next. So that's what it's talking about. So if some of the lessons are not accepted, you can't really run or do some of the things. But because the Flutter is totally separate thing, it will not pop out the dialog for you to do it. Sometimes you have to do the command line. Like here, it actually tells you you need to run Flutter Doctor -- Android lessons. Okay, so we'll do that later. I have a Mac, so this one I have extra code. It actually tells you extra code is 11.1. There is specific requirement on the version. Just follow the direction. Android Studio, I have a 3.5 Android Studio installed. IntelliJ, I have it, but looks like there are some issues. I don't have Flutter plugin, Dart plugin, and then you have to install that. But I'm deciding not to use IntelliJ. I will just stick with Android Studio, so you don't have to worry about this one. I also have a VS Code. That's also something you can use. As far as I know, VS Code is much more lightweighted. If your computer is not very good, you can switch to VS Code, Visual Studio Code, to see how that works. connected devices. So if you ever have your phone, whether it's Android or iOS, you can connect it and it will be recognized here. Okay. Again, if you have an Android phone, it's easy to run. You can run it in both Windows and iOS. But if you have an iPhone, you must have an app Mac, and also I'm pretty sure you need to have Apple developer membership, which costs you $100 per year just to run on a device. Okay, but I have an account. You can talk to me. I can add you to that enterprise account. You should be able to use that one to do it. All right. So remember, this Flutter doctor command, that's a thing you need to use very often. That's why you need to make sure you know how to go to command line to do it, because this thing is not a graph in the graphical UI. You always have to go to terminal to run it. So if you know enough about the shell, the Linux, this command, if I want to run, I have to go to this folder here to do Flutter and to run it, right? So if you want to run this command anywhere in any folder, you have to set up some kind of environment variables, right? So that's what this one does. So this one here is try to allows you to export this command to everywhere in your system, so you can type that command anywhere. So for example, if I go here, so let's go back to here. Just follow that tutorial. I think I need to go to one extra. Okay, so if I do this, all right. Once I do that, right now I'm actually not in that. Oh, sorry, I think I did the wrong one. Okay. Oh, actually no, I was right. Sorry. So right now I'm in a totally different folder. There's no Flutter installed here, but if I do Flutter here, it can still recognize that command because I just set up the environment variable. Okay, so that's what you do. In Windows, you need to do different thing. In Windows, you have to click on the setting, advanced environment variable to add that. I think there is instruction for you to do that. Okay, and then finally, it says that optionally pre-download development binary. This one, not sure what it does, but it doesn't hurt to just run it. Okay, just make sure everything is fine. Oh, pre-cache, probably just try to do some of the Android stuff for you. But one thing before we get started, I don't know if that caused the issue, but I'm gonna look at the Flutter doctor one more time. There is this licensing you need to fix. Okay, so like this one here, this is pretty critical. This one is not, because I don't need that. So if you want to access the lesson, you just do Flutter doctor -- Android lessons, right? It's going to automatically pop up some of the lessons you haven't accepted. So I'm going to click on yes. All right. So, and then run Flutter doctor one more time. All right. So most of those are chat. So we're good to go. All right. So that's the SDK part. Okay. This one, remember, this is giant zip file exported, run. Make sure if you can do the Flutter command, basically you're good to go. All right, so this one here mentioned about this Flutter doctor. All right, update your path. I think that's the same thing as we did earlier. That's it. Okay. All right, so after that, you will need to have your IDE. So I already briefly mentioned Android Studio, IntelliJ, VS Code. Okay, those are the ones you can use. Obviously, you can also use the plain editor. That also works. Okay, it works totally. So you can basically use like a Sublime and just Notepad, all works, but I don't recommend it because this is actually a pretty complicated project. Has a lot of files. You better to have some kind of a IDE to help you to manage those. Okay, you don't have to show, okay, you are very cool. You program everything using Notepad. It doesn't make much sense. It's going to be less efficient for sure. Okay, so I'm a big fan of Android Studio simply because we've done a lot of this Android development before. I'm pretty familiar with everything with Android Studio. And also, you should know that Android Studio comes from IntelliJ, so the same company, same organization. That's a pretty cool, IDE. Sometimes I think it's too good for you to learn coding. Everything is automated. Everything is auto-suggested. And when you go to the code interview, you basically realize you don't know how to write anything, right? So, but keep that in mind. But for this kind of application development, this is very helpful because there are a lot of issues. This IDE give you enough suggestions and help to move you forward. Okay, so you can use this one. You can use VS Code, IntelliJ. All of those are okay. A couple of things you need to do is Android Studio only support Android development. You need to install a Flutter plugin. Okay, I think you can do that from here. Configure. You go to plugins. okay? And then you can search for Flutter. Okay, and for some reason, let me switch this, see how it works. All right. Anyway, so this one here, you know, all the market, if you do Flutter. Yeah, so I think this is the one you need. So I think this one is already installed, okay? I think this one, maybe also Visual Studio Code and also IntelliJ, you need to get a plugin because that's how they can understand and manage your Flutter project, okay? So make sure you have that. Once you have that, you can see, you can start a new Flutter project, okay? So let's go ahead to start a new Flutter project. That's where I'm gonna start, okay? So let's see if I can fix this issue. Hopefully we can, okay? So you can then start to create a template application. You can do an application, that's pretty much what you need to choose. You can do a plugin for your, to add a developer. You can do a module, probably something that you can, you know, integrate other apps and then package. I don't know exactly what it means. Just do the application, that's what you need. All right, so once you get to this step, a few things to choose. One is the project name. Okay, let's do the, you know, day one. I'm gonna do day one Flutter app. Now, this is really important. Okay, you must identify where your SDK is. Okay, so just simply go there to choose this folder, click on open. All right, so that's where it is. Is that the correct folder? Okay, so that's where I was, and Flutter. Okay, Flutter. Just choose this one here. All right. So if you don't have it, I think you can do the install SDK, or maybe it's a it's an installation file. But don't worry about it. But this path you must get it right, otherwise it won't function. This is where you save your project. Okay, let's choose the folder. Okay, I'm gonna put it here, and then that's it. And then a little bit description. Okay, create a project offline. I don't know what that means. So not worry about that. Click on next. Okay, so company domain. Does anyone know why they ask you this? Yes. Exactly. So most of this application, when you send it to the store, you need to have a unique ID. Okay, a unique ID is basically a string, but they want you to make sure it's unique. There is no way to force everyone to use some standard. So a good way to use is you use your company domain name, because domain name is unique, and it's just a good convention. Okay, just like your Java packages, right? You need to do Java import. You sometimes have com dot something or org dot something. That's a Java convention. So they actually use the same Java convention. So let's say if I have a domain name, I have a www.cpp.edu. Okay, or we don't have this. We have cs4 and then 0.cpp.edu. That's our domain name. But for the Java convention, I think the package name, actually they showed it here, is normally from the right hand from the right to left. So edu.cpp.cs499.day1 and all of this. So they gave us a package name. So Java use package name, even the new language Kotlin. In Android, I think they also use the package name. iOS, Swift, I don't know on top of my head, but they have something similar. So that's why this one here, just choose something meaningful. Okay, choose something meaningful. And you might ask, can I use google.com? Of course you can. For development, you can. But when you publish it, most likely that name started taken. So you got to change a different one. All right. So this one is your domain name. It's going to standardize your package. And then just install the support for Swift and Kotlin. So as I mentioned, Android is pushing Kotlin as a primary language for Android, not Java anymore. You can still use Java. The difference between Kotlin and Java is that Kotlin is a lot more concise and simpler, and still based on Java. Kotlin still runs on JVM. It's just a newer and a simpler, smaller language. Okay, so install the support so that you can run the application for both platforms. All right, so now when I click on the button, I think it's gonna crash. Okay, so this is our very first bug we gotta fix. I only have found that 15 minutes before the class. Okay, so let's see. So basically, I think I had this issue earlier, so I'm not too nervous. So if that happens, normally it should open your project, and you can see that. Now it doesn't. A good thing is they have this event here. So it looks like this error is pretty straightforward. So it's actually said that could not find an option named Android X, run this for available command options. So that's basically something I want to share, that when something is wrong, okay, you can't really think or guess what happens. Any kind of program problems, bugs, you got to find facts, evidence that help you to decide what's wrong. Most of the evidence and facts come from logs, informations, and error messages. Okay, without that, you can't just Google, oh, my project doesn't open in Android Studio with Flutter project. That you can't find a solution with that kind of description, right? You got to search for this specific error message, error logs, okay, warnings. Okay, most likely you can find something similar. Okay, so all the time, later on when you get to the programming, this one doesn't work, but you see, oh, there is actually a warning or an error message. Is that related? Just go ahead to search those. Okay, so let's see. Hopefully we can fix that. Okay, so could not find an option named Android X. I could really have no idea what that means. I don't know what Android X is. A kind of a new version. So could not find an option named Android X. Okay, all right. So I was looking at this right before the class. I didn't finish it, so that's why I realized actually I saw this before. So I'm not too worried. So that means I probably already, had this issue. So if you open this, and then this one's talk about the Gradle version. Okay, you got to update that in the root of Android folder. This one here. So this one is actually about the Android project. So they have a Flutter project, Android Studio. But looks like this one is already like opened. Okay, so this one is not really what we want. This one talk about like a update of Flutter. Okay, if we don't find other options, we probably need to do this one. This one is a newer version of SDK and an update force. So looks like update is something we probably need to try. I'm very doubt if that's gonna help. Okay, so. Oh, actually, I have that actually brings me another question. So it looks like I have a 2 Flutter version here. Oh, not that one. Okay, if I do a Flutter upgrade, okay, hopefully that doesn't take too long. Let's see if there is a new version. I feel that this is already the latest version. While we're waiting, let's just look at something else. Did anyone have this issue? No? All right. Okay, so as you can see, this is a pretty common issue. Okay, this guy has exactly same thing to do the upgrade. Okay, hopefully this one works. Okay, all right. So this one updating, it does all of this. It's already up to date actually. I'm sorry. Oh, after this. Oh, okay, cool. All right, so let's see if we got it. Any luck? Okay, so I'm gonna start this one more time. One thing I'm not quite sure why my folder here shows this and the other one shows 2 slashes. Okay, anyway, let's see it. All right, so create it one more time. Application. I'm gonna do just random now because I already tried many times. So this is the part I got confused. Why this one has 2 Flutter? So this is the workspace Flutter, and there's one more folder, but why don't I see here? Like this is just the file here. It's very weird. Anyway, let's see. Hopefully that works. Nope. Okay, let me change that SDK. Okay, it's not fine. Okay, so this is a different SDK. Not sure if that works. Just try it anyway. All right, so that works. So something's wrong with that SDK, but looks like my folder here is really weird because again, I can't explain why. Because from the Android Studio, it's actually talking about this folder, but that folder is empty. Not sure why. Okay. Anyway, looks like I got another one. That just proceed. Okay. I got that's probably how I solved that last time. So basically, it's in actually this folder here. Yeah, looks like this is the most up-to-date one. All right. So, okay. So let's wait, and this doesn't look good. Why is it actually showing all of this? Oh, sorry, I somehow mistyped a C. Okay, all right. So when you choose that Flutter project application, it basically create this template application, a very first application, just like Hello World. Okay, so when I was trying Flutter, I actually realized that this is such a great example, a template. Even though you look at the code here, it's a lot, but actually most of those are comments. This code actually gave you actually a lot of good information for you to follow. Okay, if you actually understand this template very well, you could actually create a lot of things just based on this template without having to understand all the details. All right. So before we get into the code, let's actually talk about the structure of the Flutter project. So any Flutter project, once you create it, at least in Android Studio, this is the kind of structure you're going to see. Very similar to Android or iOS development. It's not just one file. Okay, there are a bunch of files, a bunch of generated files. Okay, again, you don't have to understand all the files, but I just want to highlight the things you will need to touch back and forth. Okay, now in this project folder, the most important part sits in this library. Okay, I think it's a very bad naming. It's not what a library is used for, the third-party libraries for your app. But for some reason, they put it here. Library puts all your Dart source code. Okay, your source code always go to the library, and then you can create multiple folders, package under here, but that's what they call it, library. Okay, now this Dart file, everything in Flutter is written in Dart. Dart has an extension called Dart, and then this is a Dart code. As you can see, they have a class, they have extents. That's a good sign. They're very similar to Java. They even have override annotation, same as Java. They have a return statement. They have a class. They have constructor. They have final. This is very similar to Java. Okay, so don't be intimidated. If you are good with Java, this is totally fine. Like even this one here, Python don't have this, right? But Java, you can do this. All right. So that's where the source code is sit. Okay, you're gonna create more and more Dart files under this library folder. Okay, this is the place that you need to touch most often. All right, other things, okay? There are two other folders. One is Android, one is iOS. All right, so I'm gonna expand these two folders. If you're ever familiar with Android development, this folder should look very familiar to you. Okay, that's exactly what the Android project looks like. Okay, so that means you are writing here in Dart for this library. Eventually, Dart SDK is going to do this very important job to generate the Android application for you. So you shouldn't need to go here to type anything, to code anything in Android, in Java, or Kotlin. That is generated by the Flutter SDK. Okay, you must understand that idea. So Flutter itself doesn't execute. Flutter is the SDK that allows you to generate the code from Flutter, from Dart, for Android and iOS. Okay, so that's the folder for the whole Android project. That's why with this you can run it on the Android Studio or Android phone. Similarly, this is if you ever done iOS development. This is also the standard iOS project structure with all the files. I'm not expert on this. I did a very little on that, but this is a very typical structure folder. If you open the runner, all of this, you can see some of the like the Swift file headers, info.project list. That has a lot of properties. Everything is there. So most of the time, you shouldn't need to touch Android or iOS. Okay, you shouldn't need to touch that because those can always be generated by Flutter when you build your Flutter project. But there will be occasionally that you need to go there to change it. One example I know, for example, Android, if you go app, if you go to source, go to main, go to this Android manifest file. Anyone seen this one before? Okay, Android manifest file is a little like a master configuration that configures, for example, what kind of permissions your app can use. Do you allow your app to use camera? Do you allow your app to use internet, sensors, all of those? You specify those here. Also, this file specified how many activity do you have for your Android application. Every activity basically is a one independent screen. So you have to specify all of those. Sometimes, for example, in your app project, you want to use, for example, GPS. Okay, you got to request that permission because by default, the phone won't give you that permission. So what you need to do, you actually need to go to this manifest file here to add something called uses permission, and then type the GPS or whatever location, what's it going to call. And then when you generate the Android project, that permission will be presented and then the Android will pick it up. So besides that, I don't think you need to do a lot here in these folders. Okay, so but you know that these two folders help you to run those applications. This idea file should be a project file related with IntelliJ with Android Studio. Never touch it. This one, never touch it. Okay. Test folder is where you write your tests. Okay. For this course, I have zero expectation on you to write any test, but so you know that you can do unit tests, you can do integration tests, any kind of a test, but you should split your test files in a different folder. Test in mobile is even more difficult than test general code, backend code. So I don't have much expectation, but once you start to work, you will realize that the test part is actually very, very important. Okay, let's not worry about right now. Let's make sure everyone can do some good, Flutter development. So git ignore, you should already know it. So that's the file you want to ignore when you check in the file. This one, don't worry. Package, I have no idea. All this is a hidden file. Don't worry about those. Okay. This one, I don't think you need to touch anything. Okay. No idea what it does. This one, not much idea. The most important one is this file, yum file. Okay. Public specification .yum. This one, the purpose is pretty much, if you're familiar with Android, it's the same as the Gradle file. Okay, I think this yum file has the specification for the whole build system used by Flutter. I haven't done research. I don't know what kind of build system they use. Is their own Flutter build system or Gradle or something else? Probably their own. But they actually look at this file to grab the dependencies, to configure your project, to know how to build your project correctly. When we say build, hopefully you already have some idea that you write your code right here, okay? But then when you run it as a mobile application, it's not this one piece of code. It has a lot of underlying Flutter SDKs, a lot of underlying Android OS SDKs. Sometimes you will need the third-party libraries. A good example is if you want to do, for example, Firebase connection to the Firebase database, you need to download Firebase SDKs and install those into your application. So how do we install that? Well, the answer is you actually have to specify that in the yum specification, put Firebase as one of the dependencies here, right here. So it said dependencies, you need to specify the name of the dependency and then the version of the dependency. And then after that, you put this everything here, the Flutter build system will pick it up and then package all the required file together, and then generate one single executable app file, whether it's APK or for iOS, I don't know what the name is called. There should be one single file you can send and upload to publish or run it on the phone. Okay, so the yum file here mainly does, the most important job is to manage the dependencies because your app will need to use third-party libraries, depending on what you want to do. Firebase, maybe some of the library to process the images, some of the library to process the internet, HTTP, if you need to do like machine learning, if you want to do any kind of cool features, most likely you have to find out the SDK and then put it here. Okay, the good thing is the Flutter community is very active. Most of the things you want to do, I think you can find very good libraries. Okay, so knowing how to find library, integrate that with your app, that's a very important skill to have as a mobile developer. Okay, they have dependencies here. They have a dev dependencies. In general, dev dependency means that this dependency only exists for development environment. For example, you want to test this I only want to use this one for test purposes, but once my test is done, I don't want this one to go with my production code. So you can put those separately, so that will not be included in your final build. All right. Other things, this one here, use material design, and pretty much the idea is, I think Flutter suggests that Google's material design, since they come from Google. I guess that's the configuration. Let's not touch it too much until we know more about our UI part. Other things later on you can definitely use is assets. Okay, in your app you need to add a lot of images. You need to use font files. So you have to import those, and then everything you imported. This is the part I don't quite like, is you have to specify the file name here. But in Android or in iOS, you can just drag and copy and paste there. It's available to use, but it's not really that bad. So just uncomment out this one here to add images. Also, same here. They give you example. If you want to change the font type, these are the things you can do. But obviously, you have to get this file first, and then specify it here. All right. So more information. So don't ignore these comments. The things I really like about Flutter is these comments are very user friendly, very practical. Basically, they're just commenting the things you probably need to use. So don't ignore those comments. Okay. Anything generated from these templates is really important. All right. So anyway. And then here, there's one more folder called external libraries. This is the part that you don't need to touch at all, because these ones come from these dependencies. Whatever you're specifying to depend, the Flutter build system is going to grab those dependencies and then put it here to download it to your local machine so that you can use that. All right. So by talking about this, I just want to tell you, even though this whole folder has so many files, but it's actually much simpler than Android or iOS, because literally the only file you're going to touch again is the library folder and the yum file. Yum file, you only need to touch it whenever you get a new dependency or bump of the version. Most of the time, you're actually just doing this in here. Okay. But in Android or iOS, you have separate files for UI system. But for Dart, everything is in the code. So good and bad. Okay, in Android and iOS, you can actually use their view editor to build the UI, which could be nice. But this one here, you don't have that option. Maybe they will create some kind of editor later on. But everything in the code, that's also maybe good, because it's easier for you to manage everything you write. It's very straightforward. You can just locate the specific position whenever things is wrong. All right. Any questions? All right, so let's run it. Okay, once you got this application, let's not worry about the code. Let's just make sure you can run it to test your whole environment can work. How many of you already been able to run this application or some other application? Okay, all right, not many. So very good. So to run it, because I already have my things set up, okay? If this is the brand new Android Studio, you probably need to do a lot more work. Unfortunately, I can't redo everything here. I already have my setup. It's also going to take a lot of time. First thing you need to do is you need to get an emulator. Okay, even though you have an Android phone, recently Android has done so much improvement that the emulator is even faster than phone. In my opinion, it's faster. Previously, it's not the case. Previously, it's super slow. Okay, but now they have done so much improvement. The emulator is great to use, convenient, easy to test, quickly launch, and then you don't need to plug in your phone. So most of the time, you should test this in the emulator. Okay, in Android Studio, you need to actually go to create a virtual device. I think it's this button. Okay, from here, you can create a virtual device. I already created a lot of this. It's very easy to create, so create a virtual device. And then you can choose whether it's a TV or wearable devices that's just focus on the phone. And then they give you some of the pre-selected phones to use. I just do the Pixel because that's official Google. It should have very good support. In my experience is I try to avoid the latest version. Okay, because the latest version always has the newest software. That means you have the least support. Okay, and it shouldn't be the most stable. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I normally choose, for example, Pixel 2, Pixel 2X, or Pixel 3. I'm not going to choose the Pixel 4. They don't have it, but sooner or later they will have it. Okay, I wouldn't do that. But maybe it's not a big deal. Okay, so you can choose one device, and they have a dimension, the size, everything. You can choose all of this, and then click on next. This is really important. Okay, for Android, you should know that Android is an operating system. And then just like iOS, Android has different versions. What's the current version of Android? 10, right? I think it's Android 10. What's the name? Pie? Android Pie? Q? Yeah. Anyway, so they have all the numbers. Oh, actually, that shows here. I don't. Is this? Oh, yeah. It's called a Q. Okay. Android 9 is the Pie and Oreo. Okay, all of this. So, when you create your device, you have to choose. Previously, you would choose which phone. Okay, manufacturer. Now you have to choose which Android version. Okay, this is very, very important. Okay, so which version should you choose right now? Or in other words, what's the deal here about this Android version? What are the things you need to be careful about the version? Dependency. More specific. What does that mean?
The version is supporting the OS, because sometimes the dependency version is changed.
Right. Okay, so if you ever had some this mobile development experience, this OS version is a very important and critical concept and decision you need to think and make. Okay, same for LOS. LOS right now is LOS 13, I think. You also have LOS 12, 11, 10, all of this. So first of all, one thing for certain is all the devices are not going to be in the same version. Okay, because some of the devices are very old, they can't run, they don't have storage. Some people don't know how to update. Some manufacturers don't support updating. Okay, so there are always different versions exist in the market. Okay, today Google announced Android Q, and it's going to take them probably a couple of years to roll out this to the majority of the devices. Okay, so that means all of us are using all different versions. The good thing, you can find out the market share. Okay, so if you want to go to here, you want to say Android version, this one here, they gave this one from the official site, I think. Okay, let's check out this one here. Okay, so this one tells you, and let's see. So they haven't got Android Q yet. Android 9, only 10%. Okay, Android 9 was a year ago, at least a year ago, only 10%. So Android 8, almost 30%. Android 7, almost 20%. Android 5, 20%. And then the rest, 10%. Okay, as you can see, that even Android 9, only 10%. So you shouldn't expect most people are using this version. Yes. Oh, no, of course not, So no, once you know this, you need to make a decision, okay? If you choose the latest version, that means you can program, you can use all the latest feature. I can't tell you what's the latest feature in Android. Some of the cool notification, some of the things, you can find out from their press release, okay? Every version, major update, there should be some of the major changes, and then to make your life better, developer life better, new features. And obviously, if you program this cool push notification, for example, but the user is using Android 6, they don't have the engine to render that. Okay, that's not going to work. Okay, your new feature won't work in older devices. Okay, then you want to say, okay, then to be safe, I'm going to always choose Android, Gingerbread. Okay, so that means I support 100% market share. Okay, obviously you don't want to do that because you go back, that version sucks. Okay, that UI sucks. You don't have all the classes, and then it's very difficult to program. And also, there's no guarantee that this Android 9 support all of those, exactly the same. All right, so there is a trade-off. There's no perfect solution. Okay, you got to choose the version in the middle, and that probably makes more sense, and then go from there. Okay, so in general, I think you just go from 7 or 8. That should be fine. Okay, so that's the big picture of this. However, it doesn't really work exactly as what I talk. It doesn't mean that if you choose 9, that these things won't be able to run it. They can still run it. Okay, in Android, for example, they have a lot of this support library. I don't know if everyone use that. There's the Android SDK. There's the Android support SDK. The support actually exists in order to support backward compatibility. Okay, so there are ways that you can make it work for certain versions in the past. but it's limited. Okay, you can't expect this one work for everything. Okay, there's only certain aspect. For example, the UI. A good example is Android had this material design from Android 5, I think Android 5. Previously, they don't have material design. And then if you still want to use this material design and use that for the older devices, you can. Okay, they have to support UI library. You import it, it's going to support some kind of compatibility, but don't expect a super good experience and everything works 100%. Okay, so in general, you should pick some version from the latest year, but I would again try to avoid the latest version, because also another issue is later version you don't have enough support. Does that make sense? iOS, I'm not the expert. I think iOS to some extent is a lot better than Android, because Apple is the only company that controls their upgrade, right? So that's why the iOS device is normally upgrade much better. Okay, so let's see. So if you go iOS, version market share. Okay, so you can see this is much better. Okay, iOS 13 is already 90% above. The reason, because Apple forced you to do the update, push everyone. But Android, there are hundreds of companies making Android phones, and a lot of this system are controlled by those companies, not by Google. So there's nothing Google can do. Okay, so that's the reason behind it. It's too open. All right, so that's why the iOS situation is, in general, is much better and much easier than Android. Okay, but same idea. The Android the iOS 13, the features won't be available in iOS 12. Yes.
So presumably checking the API and like if you keep the features and functions that are available, it should tell you when those are introduced, so you can check the stuff that you wanted.
Yeah, but however, for most of the function we're going to implement, I think the past 3 years shouldn't matter too much. Yeah, unless you want to use this really, the new update is not going to change the function dramatically. It's just this cool, again, a good example like a notification, something like that. Just make decisions. But again, as I mentioned, even those new features, there are ways to make it backward compatible, but you just need to double check that. Okay. All right, so this is pretty important. So that's why I just randomly pick a pi here. I don't want to try that 9 because I just worry that Q. I just worry that I found issues, nobody never done that, and you can't find answers. Okay, so that's it. So you click on this next. It's going to download that SDK and then pack everything onto your phone. So once it's done, it's something like this. I have this Pixel Android 9 here. Okay, I'm going to start my device. Okay, let's see how long. See, it's up. That's it. It takes 3 seconds. And that never happens. When we were teaching this course back in 2014, 15, 16, we actually had to use a different emulator that still takes about 1 minute to start up. And then if you use the default emulator, it takes 5 minutes. So if you have an older computer, it takes maybe forever to launch it. Now they did a much more improvement. Okay, it's basically a Pixel device with Android 9 installed. You can do everything you want. All right, very convenient. Okay, so no matter what, you probably need to set up this one, especially if you have Windows. This is the only option you have. Okay, so then the next thing is once you have this, you can start to run it. So once you launch this, it automatically recognize you have an Android device. And let's click on the button here to run it. All right, so let's open the device and just wait. All right, so now the Flutter SDK start to work. So read all their files, compile it, and generate the Android, and then build it, and then we eventually get an APK file and send it over to the emulator. And from there, it's going to run it. Now, this process should take quite a while, depending on your computer. Okay, first of all, it's a very complicated process, and also Android Studio is very heavy. My computer, we'll see, I think it's going to take at least almost 1 minute, I think. My computer is already 3 or 4 years old, okay? Some of the newer Macs should be much faster than newer Windows. But if your computer also like 2 or 3 years old, don't expect this process to be that fast. But it's only first time. Once you run it, next time when you run it, it will be much faster, okay? But every time the first launch will be taking some time. Okay, we'll see. So this is still building. You see the bar here, pretty normal. Okay, And then that's when the laptop or fan start to really become noisy. Very, very typical. Okay. Okay, so while we're waiting, so I got two important things you need to keep in mind in the beginning, okay? So later on, when you start to program Dart, Flutter, as I mentioned, there are actually quite a lot of things, okay? I don't think we're gonna start from talking about Dart syntax, everything like that. It doesn't make sense, okay? And we're gonna basically focus on the most important part about Flutter and just do that by examples one by one. So like here, for example, you look at this code. If you, day one, if you try to understand every single line, it's not very reasonable. Okay, I'll give you an example, like this one here. My app class, I extend this stylus widget, okay? And then this one here, there is a stateful widget. Till now, I can't explain perfectly what's the difference between stateful and stylus, okay? But it doesn't matter. So it looks like this works. This example is going to work once we see it's running. Let's just focus on the important. For example, in the beginning, first couple of weeks, we'll focus more on the UI part. So here is how you specify the UI. You got a bar, you got a body, you got a center, how to lay out that. You got a title, text, all of this. These are things you should learn first. Okay. If some concept you try to Google, for even you Google like state, there's a state. You Google like a stateful widget. What does that mean? And then the document tell you a lot of information. We read it, it won't make perfect sense to you yet. Okay. So that's why that's not a problem. Okay. That's really not a problem. You should, be comfortable to ignore some of the technical details and focus on the important things first. Focus on the part you can understand. I'm a little bit surprised why it takes so long. Maybe I'm recording the screen. Okay, so let's just be a little bit patient. So that's one advice. Okay, so a lot of things, even you search for the documentation, still look very confusing. Okay, don't worry. Later on, once you do more things, a lot of things will become more reasonable to you. And the second tip is, whatever things goes wrong, it's different from what I'm showing you. Just Google it. As you can see, even that answer, the people gave you different solutions. So you never know which one works for your situation. Right. Okay, so also while we're waiting, let me actually also try my phone. So I want to show you how you can run this on your device. Okay, so I have a Pixel 3, and then let me see if I can pop up my screen here, okay? So there's a software called Visor. This one here. Okay, you plug in your phone, and then you can actually, I can try to like let me see the phone. Okay. Oh, I think it's almost there. Okay, let's wait a little bit. So finally, I think part of the reason because I'm recording the screen, so that's why it takes a lot of CPU, and this one's here just goes so slow. All right, but once you can see here, this actually generated app.apk. APK is the Android executable file. Okay, so that one is sent it to the emulator, and the app works. Okay, so Flutter home demo home page. That's the app. It does, and then there's one button here you can click. Okay, and then it's going to bump out the number here. Give you this example. This example is really simple, but it's actually very, very helpful. Okay, it helps you to understand a lot of different things. Let's not worry about the code today, but make sure you can run this very first application on your emulator. Okay, That means your environment is good, your Android is good, everything is good, your computer is good enough. Okay, so very important. If you haven't done this, this is your first priority. Okay, let me continue. You can also run this on your phone. Okay, on your Android phone. If you've never done Android development, okay, so so for example here. All right. Okay, so first of all, you need to enable. If you just plug in the USB cable, it won't work because by default, the phone doesn't allow you to do the development. Does anyone know how to enable your phone to become a developer? Yeah, it's you can Google it, but it's a very funny thing to do. Like you go here, setting find out system, right? Yeah, system, and then yeah, I'm already here. Oh, about, yeah, that's right, about. Yeah, this one here. Yeah, build number, I think. Yeah, this one here. Okay. If you've never done development, plug into your computer, you got to do this one. Just click on this, as you can see, you're already a developer. Otherwise, you have to tap that 5 times, and it secretly makes you a developer. Once you become a developer, you're gonna have this option here called developer options. Okay, and then here is things you can do the development. Like this is the most important one. You must enable the USB debugging. And then also you have to allow the computer to access your phone. Okay, so that's for Android. iOS, you don't need to do this, but iOS you need to have a membership. Okay, so now once I connect it, I can choose where I want to run it. I can choose my real phone here to run it. So if I do this, I can do this again. Let's see how long that's going to take. Okay, let's see. So, all right, looks like this one needs also to rebuild it. Right. All right, so this is faster. Let's see. All right, same thing. I can just go here to type the number and it works. Okay. And if you want to do that in iOS, let's see. So they have this one here, OpenOS simulator, but you got to make sure that you already set up Xcode. Okay, this one comes from Xcode. Again, in the Xcode, the Xcode is a great environment. Their emulator is always faster. It's great experience. Okay, so but again, you must have a Mac. I did some research. I don't think you can have a Windows to do this. Okay, so you open this. Now you can also choose to run this on the iPhone 11 Pro device. Okay, so if you do this one here, let's see. All right, so this one is running the Xcode build. All right, so everything is done by the Xcode. And also for this app, if you're familiar with Android or Android development, the UI, everything, I think it is just a native widget. Okay, so this is not a web stuff. Okay, it's not fake. the experience is pretty much the same as your Android development. That's why people are actually using this kind of framework. Okay, to give you the same experience. All right, so iPhone version is also up and running. Okay, as you can see, it's pretty nice. Exactly the same view. Even though this one is a typical Google material design style, you don't see this kind of stuff very often in iOS, like the font or this font type. I don't think that's what the Apple use, but the good thing is now it's so simple to make two things unified. And you just write this code once. It works for both platforms. Okay, so that's why this framework is so popular, so attractive for the developers. But of course, you don't want to think this is that perfect. Okay, if this is really that perfect, then what's the point of having the other platforms? So think about from the Flutter point of view, the way they work is you write this code here with this class. Once you build it, they need to transfer or actually generate the code in Java for Android. Because I know, okay, for this, you want to make a screen, you need to do a lot of this, right? And then in Android, if I want to make the screen, I need to do a lot of XML code stuff. Let me show you. Okay, resource, drawable, I can't find an example here, but in Android, it doesn't show you the generated stuff. But anyway, Android uses a different format. So all they're trying to do is try to basically map all this widget to the Android widgets, whatever specification they use, and then run those stuff. Okay, so they should give you this native experience. And same idea for iOS. iOS, they use different file. They use a storyboard, but I think at the end it's still XML. And also the Dart will be generated with those. Okay, so this is a very typical technique used by a lot of the software tools. Code generation is actually a pretty big field. But because of that, you should know that there will be certain things that you cannot support for both platforms. Maybe Apple support this feature, Android is not supporting it. That way, you just can't expect to write a Flutter and then to do the two things. You probably at one point still need to go back to one of the platform to do some kind of modification. I think Flutter should provide you some kind of extensions for you to add specific platform code. Okay, I haven't done the research, but there should be an option. Like React Native, I think you can do it, right? So that's something that you actually need to think a little carefully. If you were going to do this Flutter or React Native development for your app, make sure your app, the functions can be actually implemented here. Most of the functions should be okay. The only thing you need to be worried, be careful is some of this new feature, like AR feature, machine learning feature. The two platforms should have very different support. Okay, just to make sure that that won't be an issue, because if that is an issue, later on you probably still need to have to write two different codes for two different platforms somehow to some degree. And if that's the case, maybe it's better to just do the native development. All right. So a lot of trade-offs here, a lot of good benefits, but at the same time, it's not perfect. All right. Any questions? Okay, cool. So Tuesday, we'll talk about ideas. Okay, the idea is same. If you've been to 480, same idea. Okay, problem. But I probably will pick some of the mobile examples to give you some better ideas on what to do for mobile. Some of the good ones I've seen recently. And but you need to decide your idea as quickly as you can. And then also we'll talk about other coding stuff. All right. So I'm gonna I'll upload this to YouTube. Okay.